this week's live Q&A here in the INFx, our INFJ INFP Healing group on Facebook. It is great to be here with you today, and I do want to extend my deepest condolences to the family and friends of George Floyd on this day of his funeral, and anyone else who has been affected by systemic racism. And also, I want to I'm going to look and see if I can share a video I did on this from a white privilege perspective earlier today. I'm just going to ask for permission from the person who asked this question in another group. So I'll see what I can do about that. But I just want to say to my people of color friends, my brothers, my sisters, my beloved people in my life, I hear you, I see you, and tell me what I can do better. So today we have some great questions for this live Q&A, and I am excited to see what we could find in terms of resolutions to some of these challenges. These are, of course, real questions for real people, and I just want to say that for the month of June, we're kind of focusing on relationships. So if you have relationship-based questions, please forward them on to me at desk@infxproject.com, or post them into the group and tag either myself or Marie or Lisa into those questions, so one of us admins, and we can bring them forward into this live Q&A session. Okay, so first question for today. I'm an INFP whose partner is an ESTP. I've heard you talk about inner parenting, but I don't know much about it. How will this help me in my relationship? Okay, so something that what we call inner parenting is also what we call the 4 people within work. If you're already familiar with that, if you already know about that, then that's great. If you're not familiar with it, you can head on over to learning units of this group, of our INFP Healing group on Facebook, and check out the INFP roundtable model unit from there. That will give you a lot of understanding about your own type. If you want kind of more information, there's a whole ebook. I think it's over 30 pages. I can't remember I wrote it, but it's a while ago at this stage. You can head on over to Sumiloff.com and grab the ebook from there. On the front page, it's for free, so you can just go and grab it there and read it. That will give you an idea of the 4 people with an approach, which is what I created as an effective inner parenting tool. And the reason why I think it's so effective is because I worked with inner parenting for a while, and I always thought about the concept of the inner child, and it just didn't feel completely fulfilling for me. And then I realized at some point that there are actually more inner children than just one. And if we put that inner child concept on top of the Myers-Briggs concept, we actually get 2 inner children. So we get your adult self, which is your main process, your inner parent, which is your auxiliary process, and your inner 10-year-old, your 10-year-old inner child, who is your tertiary process, and then the 3-year-old inner child, who is your inferior process, or what they call inferior process in the Myers-Briggs system. So if we look at that model, and if we use that model in your case, in your relationship, you as an INFP, you have your adult self is the ethicist. So your adult self is all about just making sure that things are ethical, that how you live your life is authentic, that how people treat themselves and treat each other is ethical, that it's very much in a space where things are done the right way. With that model, your inner parent is outward-facing intuition, which we call the pioneer. So they're always looking for the possibilities in life and what could work out. Your inner 10-year-old, your 10-year-old inner child would be inward-facing sensing, which we call the historian. So they're always referring into the history of what happened in the past to collect information about what's likely to happen in the future. And for your 3-year-old inner child, your outward-facing thinking, we call the executive. And that part of you is the one that gets stuff done. And then for your ESTP partner, their adult self is what we call an investigator, which is outward sensing. So this is all about collecting information in real time, and loves like negotiations, and loves experiencing like tactile life in real time. The inner parent for the ESTP is what we call the scientist, which is an inward thinking function. And the scientist is all about just what are the facts here? What are the, what's factually true? How can we keep this process pure? Those kinds of things. The ESTP's inner 10-year-old is what we call a unifier or an outward feeling, and they just want to get along. And then finally, the ESTP 3-year-old inner child, which is witness, which is what we call the witness, the inward-facing intuition, is all about arranging the information that they have collected in a way that makes sense, and then drawing lines between what relates to what. Now, if you're an INFP and you are in a relationship with an ESTP, it basically means that you have no functions in common. You have no two people in common around your round table. So that in and of itself, in relation to relationships, can really cause some challenges, because you don't have common ground in many things. So when it's good, it's really good because you're really complementing one another. But when it's bad, it almost feels like you're unable to kind of function together. You're like butting heads all the time. And if you look at the inner parent process of the ESTP, it is a thinker part of them, a thinker part of that person. And your thinker part is, of course, as the 3-year-old inner child, which then means that if you're, for example, fighting, you might feel like they are condescending in how they're talking to you, even though they're trying to speak to you from one of their grown-up processes. So just understanding the differences, who are your inner children, how are they likely to get triggered, what are the likely things that are different within you, and how are those things going to be rubbed the wrong way when you're struggling with each other, is going to be helping you to, for example, problem solve or resolve issues of communication and so on. If you can just understand that you have no two functions in common, and you are likely to, like when you're at odds with one another, you are very likely to just not understand each other. So give each other grace. It's completely normal and completely okay to not understand one another in those situations. So that's what I would say. And really embrace each other's functions, the differences, as much as you can. And when you can't, when you feel you're butting heads, then just say, okay, we have no functions in common. We don't understand each other on a deep level when we're struggling, and we just need to relax and try and relax into knowing that the other person's not trying to hurt me, but we might have difficulty communicating with each other. So that's what I would say to that. So I hope that answers your question. I look forward to hearing your reflections on how, if that made sense. If there was more you wanted to add to that, just let me know. I'd love to hear.